League of Legends hot takes. Here we go again. Doublelift should be the next player inducted into the Hall of Legends over most likely Uzi. Doublelift is the best North American pro player all time, and he's one of the greatest personalities ever in the league scene. He's a big reason why there are still TSM chants today. Okay, so first and foremost, Doublelift joined TSM October 2015. After TSM's long dominance in terms of how hyped they were and how beloved they were. TSM's dominance started very, very early. Season 1, 2 with Reginald, The Odd One, The Rain Man, Special of course, and then Wild Turtle, and then Bjergsen. The TSM reign was already in full gears. TSM chants were very, very busy for the longest time due to that. In regards to being the best North American pro, there is arguments for that. Doublelift won championships on Team Liquid, won them on TSM 2, and won them again when TSM came through. I think there is an argument for that based off of trophies alone. But in terms of what the Hall of Legends should represent is, of course, what kind of a role model were you? I think in that circumstance, Bjergsen, in terms of his Twitter followers, in terms of his overall impact and viewership, I do think Bjergsen is more deserving. Also, a lot less controversial. Doublelift was in many, many controversies and famously said that Spring Split doesn't matter and had a bunch of, situations he put himself in. But all things considered, these are not metrics that the Hall of Legends go by. It is about how many people care about you. It's a question of popularity. The truth is, the person who is the most popular after Faker is Uzi. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Shy gets inducted, Rookie gets inducted, you have Doinby getting inducted, Jackie Love. In terms of popularity, that's all it is, because it's a commercial idea. You need to be able to sell whatever they're going to be pushing. It needs to get people interested. And Doublelift just doesn't have the same level of pull, not even close to it. There are Western personalities that have way more pull, and that's what it comes down to. It's a popularity contest. So, hot take, but City, I think greatest personalities ever in the league scene is crazy. A man walked out and said, when they were fighting for the rights of the challenger players.
If it's the option of standing by Academy and having LCS Summer Split be canceled, like Riot threatened, and just letting go of the situation, I'm letting go. I'm letting go of the situation. I'm not so gung-ho about it.
Oh, the famous conflict of interest. There's many memes. But yeah, popularity contest, he doesn't win it. Those who achieved more than 2 championships along with Faker should not be considered in respective roles GOAT discussion. I don't hate Wolf and Korea, but my GOAT support is Beryl. The guy got 2 champs on different teams without Faker. So it doesn't matter the context of how they got the trophies, their effort to get the trophy. I don't think Faker won 5 world championships. He won 25 of them. Because all of those, even more, because there are subs too that got trophies, right? Got a part of the trophy and a medal and a part of it. I think he won 32 world championships. The context of how people play, that is the most frustrating part in this discussion, because we can't have a nuanced discussion about how good Rookie is or how good a player like Chovy is, because it all comes down to, well, did he win worlds? Well, there are players that have won worlds that are not that great because of circumstances, and there are players that haven't won worlds that are completely freaking fantastic too because of, circumstances. In terms of winning the world championship, it is quite a small percentage of all the games that you play within a year. Of course, they're extremely important, but in terms of evaluating a career of a person, it must come down to a lot more than just world championships. And then at the same time, you make the point about Beryl, or should we make the same point that Showmaker and Canyon just completely smurfed out of their minds and played better than him? It doesn't make any sense. You have to contextualize the input and the impact. And if you think that winning Worlds as Korea in 2023 and 2024 in terms of how far ahead he was of his competition, that it somehow takes anything away from him because he's playing with Faker, it is impossible to have conversations about who is the greatest player or who are the greatest players or how good players are with people that only value world championships. And on top of that, this value completely any player that played together with Faker, because this is extremely, extremely disingenuous. If you take, for example, the three random games over the span of Keria's career, and you take 3 random battle games, you know that those 3 random career games are going to be most likely a lot better than Beryl's random game where he goes 0-8 and just goofs off. Volume should matter. It should matter. And how you play together with Faker should matter too. With Fearless staying for the foreseeable future, Fnatic should run a 6-man roster with Wunder and Oscarinin in top. Let Wunder play most of the tank and some bruiser lanes and Oscarinin the carry counter matchups. Go away from being a jack of all trades and instead be a master of both styles. I think it's interesting conceptually. The tricky thing about making a commitment like this is that the game changes. If there is a lack of necessity for one thing and a more of a necessity in one thing, then your investment becomes inherently redundant. Let's compare it to T1 situation. T1 situation, in terms of if we just talk about it from a competitive sense, they were in a situation with Gumayusi and Smash where they clearly have very different strengths. Gumayusi likes to play Jhin, Xayah, Varus, Caitlyn. Very, very clear specific champions. And then when they are out of the pool, you can see that he pivots heavily into comfort and doesn't ping the next strong champions in line, whether that's Ezreal, Kai'Sa, Zeri, right? And in that context, right, you can see a clear path in the context of the meta of where you could maybe summon a Smash if things, were natural in that team and everything worked well. The main issue with League is that in terms of practice, the main thing most pro teams focus on is how you connect and how you play together. And the less hours you invest into playing as a group 5, the less accurate you become. It becomes a little bit trickier to be a plug-and-play player. And you need to really, really have the right personality, someone that is very, very thankful for being in a position who has zero expectation to play, like, for example, the Bwipo Soa situation. Bwipo was very happy to be an observer and through watching and observing realize exactly what the team needs. They were playing similar champions and in different contexts, of course, they were subbed in. So there is a way to do this, but with where esports is at, spending a lot of money on things that might not be useful unless, of course, this person is ready to take a coach role within the team too, I think it can be dangerous. But of course, in a world where you have endless money, I don't think this is a terrible idea. I think, in fact, it's a good idea. Maybe not so hot take, but a controversial one. Riot should 100% go to cryptocurrency gambling sponsorships in order to financially help the future of the league. Even huge sports like fighting events have adopted this and it's worked out. Like it or not, it's the best thing. Well, I think if you wanted to survive and you want to have jobs, then probably this is something that you got to do. People within esports have not figured out how to monetize esports fans. They are not local. It's very, very top heavy. I think that, what has happened in CS is also going to be a natural progression of League 2. I think that Riot is going to reach a point where investment on, of course, esports is no longer going to pay them back in terms of advertisement for the game and skin revenue, because no new players are coming in and people are not buying skins anyway. That aspect of it. And if they're in a position where you're no longer gaining for the massive loss that, of course, the LCK is and the LEC is, if you're not gaining from that through the game and having actively, just producing new players, then you're going to be in a position where, of course, you got to make changes. And then pushing, the tournament format where tournament organizers accrue all the costs of hosting and figuring out how to monetize it, I think that's just fine, right? In CS, practically every fucking tournament is either gambling or Saudi money, right? And I think if you want esports to survive, that's what it's going to be, you know? I think that's just how it is. I've already mentioned this a couple of times, but in my dream world, or what I foresee in the future, is that you're going to have international tournaments where teams have been invited already. Regional leagues are going to be tier 2, and that's where you can qualify to potentially tournaments, but it's tier 2, and these international tournaments already have all the biggest orgs in the world invited, pre-invited. So basically, you create a very top-heavy tournament, because esports is inherently top-heavy, because nobody has any ties to like some history or some nostalgia or some, you know, like some geographic thing, like, oh, this city is represented by this team, this is my roots, this is my father's team, and his grandfather was the fullback of the team. There's nothing like that. You send, of course, let's say G2, KC, Koi, and then you send T1, Genji, Hanwha Life, Bilibili, and then you send JDG, Weibo Gaming, IG, whoever is like the most popular, Team Liquid, FlyQuest, C9. These teams are already pre-invited, and they're just battling it out in internationals time and time again. Boom, boom, boom. They're just fighting against each other, fighting against each other, fighting against each other, right? And if that was the circumstance, you bring all the fan bases together and create clashes over and over again, and the regionals can qualify into this competition maybe, and you create a circumstance where, you know, that's just tier 2. And these tournaments that I'm referencing are organized by, you know, outside TOs that have nothing to do with Riot. Maybe that's going to be the future, you know? That's the only way I see esports surviving. Owner should be considered for top 1 jungle in history. His performance since 2023 Worlds hasn't stopped, and he has some strong, iconic plays to match up against Peanut and Canyon. I think that Owner has been very impressive in his career. I think there's been periods of inconsistency, definitely. I think that his World Championship runs, I think in terms of mechanics and being clutch, I think you can argue that he is one of the most clutch junglers of all time when it comes to very critical situations, right? When it comes to team fights and finding angles like the rel, or like finding crazy Lee Sin kicks. I think this is his biggest strength, and this is definitely, of course, you know, his biggest, you know, that's where he's the most zen. I think in the more recent times, I think he is becoming more mature as a jungler, definitely, and finds more often consistency. But I think the main knock against, of course, Owner and this claim is, you know, in terms of regional impact and regional consistency, and also time in the game. I think that's, you know, the biggest question mark, right? The biggest question mark. I think Peanut, considering he was one of the best junglers in the world 2015, 10 years ago, and has consistently competed at the very, very top level, finding wins across multiple teams. Canyon having the highest skill in terms of what jungling is. If jungling was a metric, Canyon has reached the highest peak of jungling. It's hard for me to just yet push him there, but I can definitely see Owner. Like, Owner is very early on in his career. Owner can definitely get there. But I think when I look at Canyon, his Damwon 2020, Damwon 2021 was completely psychotic in terms of how good it was. 2022 was a softer one, right? 2023 was definitely also probably like the most disappointing, year for Canyon. But then coming in Canyon 2024 was fucking monstrous, right? For the majority of it, in my opinion, right? There's been some regular splits where, for example, in summer, that was more disappointing. But you have to also add the context of Owner matching up against Peanut and Canyon regionally. And I believe that there, Peanut and, of course, Canyon have the upper hand. But I do think that Owner deserves to be a part of this conversation. But I do think longevity and playing with different players, different teams, also matters in this context. The fact that Peanut has won the LCK Championship on 5 different organizations is extremely, extremely impressive. And I would love to see, if this conversation carries forward, I would love to see Owner play with different players and to see what kind of a success he can achieve. Because currently, of course, he's been playing with the same players over and over again, and he has mastered a very specific way of playing. But I do think Owner deserves a lot of praise and a lot of respect for how good he is. But I wouldn't say that he's the top #1 jungle in history right now. E will be better than the LPL this year. I'd pick KC, Fnatic, and G2 if they match against TES, AL, and JGG or Bilibili. I disagree. I watch every LPL game, every LEC game, and the LPL level is higher. I think that JDG is beatable. Top esports depends on them. But I think that Europe will be the underdog in these matchups. I think that people are heavily overreacting based off of first stand, which was a Mickey Mouse shit tournament. And there is a high chance that one of the LPL teams collapses and they just have a bad run, because that's just something that happens for LPL, because there's, things that are rooted in how LPL is built up that are a little bit unserious. And knowing how the playoffs go, there is so much different teams that the team that wins is usually a specialist on something, and then they can't carry that over to the World Championship. There's a chance of that, but I don't see any signs why KC, Fnatic, and G2 currently, and their current level of play, they should beat top esports AL. I think LPL is still the stronger region. Flash needs to be balanced around other summoner spells, or should be given the back to base treatment and be a separate thing. Flash and Exhaust should be equal in power, and I should have a tough time deciding between them, and that's literally never been the case. So you're making the argument that all summoner spells should be equal in power, and therefore Flash should be nerfed to the point where it's a decision to take Flash over something else. That if I want to play Barrier Exhaust versus someone that plays Flash Barrier, that there should be kind of an equal trade here. The issue is Flash has always been absurdly broken. There was a point in time where flashing would break all projectiles flying towards you. So if someone clicked an on-click stun, like Taric stun onto you, which was in the past just a click thing that you'd sent on the enemy, and if you flash, you could just break the projectile. And that was what Flash was. It was very broken, and that was an idea that Riot had in the beginning. And it was something that was in the game for so long, where the whole game has been built on the premise that Flash exists in its current form. And that is the main issue. I don't think there is a way to nerf Flash, because inherently the game is designed in a way where everybody has Flash. I don't know. I don't think that all summoner spells should be equal, though. They should be contextual. And sadly, the context of League is that you need Flash every game. The same way in top lane, you play TP most of the time, because that's the context, right? I don't think just because every top laner plays with TP that they should buff the fuck out of other summoners and nerf the shit out of top TP just to shake things up. That's at least where I'm at. I feel like it would just unleash too much havoc. Scrimming in Fearless is drastically lowering the level of gameplay of teams, and is a big reason of the variations of level in teams. I agree, and often when you make this point, people are meeting you with, well, Yamato, they are pro players, they should be able to play every role. Imagine you say this to, like a football player. He should be able, all he does is kick a ball all day. Why can't he score? Why can't he do free kicks? Why can't he be a goalkeeper too? In terms of masters of things, they usually practice the same thing through repetition over and over again. There's definitely a skill in terms of being adaptable and having knowledge that is transferable between champions and so forth. And it's definitely, a skill set that you get challenged on that is very different from traditional League. But it definitely increases variance of gameplay. And anyone that says that it doesn't is delusional. Like the variance of play and the amount of drafts that are lost is increasing tenfold. If you just look at the finals in winter, You look at the G2 finals, or you look at the game 5 of Genji How Life. It's like there are massive outdrafts that only happens once. And once again, this is a skill set. I'm not saying it's a skill set, but it's a very different skill set from being, you know, extremely sharp on the things that you know. And I do think that it comes with a lot of variance, and it definitely lowers the level of peak gameplay. It goes without saying, because you're practicing so many different mutations of League of Legends on a daily basis. Game 1, 2 usually look similar. 3, it begins to get, you know, you begin to cook. Game 4, 5, when you're scrimming, it's a extreme cocktail. So there's that. I'll never stop saying it. Season 5 had the best iteration of jungle. Every camp did something. There was actual strategy. Now it's just mindless PvE. So what this chatter is referencing is the fact that smiting, for example, Wolf, made a little spirit that would travel around and spot people. Smiting Gromp gave you, of course, like a poison thorns debuff. Smiting Raptor gave you clear sight if you spotted a ward. I think it was interesting. It definitely, you know, carried some nuance. In terms of the challenge that Riot is always facing in terms of jungle is not necessarily only how the jungle role feels, but also how the jungle role interacts with other roles. And on top of that, how jungle is played by the majority of the player base. Because making jungle simple is something that is beneficial for the average player. Whether it's catch-up mechanics or it is, you know, the simplicity of having every jungle being able to full clear pretty much at 3:30 if you just click the camps. That is something that was put in place to help junglers that are bad, because when jungle is complex, it just ruins the game too fast. If there was a jungle gap in Season 5, you auto lost the game. Because I've had this conversation with Dom many times. I'm like, I understand where you're coming from, Dom. I want the jungle to be complex. I want it to be punishing if you make mistake. I want it to be strategy. I want it to be, you know, an idea behind how you clear the camps and how you do the camps. But noobs play this game and they need to, you know, not solo lose the game instantly if they get auto-filled. Champ select should be 2 times faster. Yeah, the issue is people lag. There's client issues. There's also, you know, like, what do you do? 15 seconds to pick a champion. Honestly, I can see it. I can see it. Like, I can see a world where champion select is faster. I do think a lot of things can be predetermined. I do think that even the UI of how you pick your champions can be a lot better too. It's like all just too many champions at the same time, and all of us are used to it, but there should be a better way of making a more intuitive, more intuitive, you know, champion select. Like, let's say you have top lane champs that you've played and most frequently played, and maybe there's a tab for like how other people counter this champion. Like maybe there's like some suggestive statistics or something. Maybe there's a way to make it more streamlined. I'm sure there's better ways to make the champion select UI more intuitive, and through that also be able to cut out time because decisions are easier to make. I can definitely see that. That's it for the hot takes. Some of them gave me a headache, so I'm going to go take an aspirin. If you sneeze during this video, bless you and bless your face. I'll catch you guys on the next hot takes. Arigato gozaimasu.